be judgmental, if possible. This stigma has kept people from getting treatment, and that has to end. So please welcome Rebecca. She's going to share her story.
Y'all look a whole lot scarier from up here than you did back there. Like you said, my name is Rebecca Harris. I appreciate the opportunity to come and just share with you guys my story and who I am and the impact of drugs and alcohol on my life. Just really starting from the beginning, I'm a preacher's kid. Y'all know what they say about preacher's kids, right? We're the meanest ones. Which growing up in church all my life, we always blamed it on the deacon's kids. Said it was their bad influence on us. But anyway, my mom was a stay-at-home mom. My dad was preaching, and he also worked a full-time job. I have two older brothers. We fought like cats and dogs. My mom would look at us, and we would hear, "Wait till your dad gets home." We knew we better straighten up, kiss her hiney and do something, because my dad did not believe in sparing the rod. We got our hind ends busted. And probably not as many as we needed, to be honest with you. But anyway, I was around drugs and alcohol as a kid. As a matter of fact, my mom was a kind of in-the-closet drug addict, being a preacher's wife. She was addicted to pain medication. And she would go get me to go down to my mom and papa's house, which was right down below me. And she would always get Darvocet, old school pain medicine, Darvocet. She'd have me go down there and get her some of those and bring them back up to her. And I remember one of the first real memories I had of my mom is I walked in the bathroom and she was passed out on the commode. And I'm thinking, what's this? But in my mind, I knew it was the drugs. And so I ended up getting curious. I ended up going down to my mom and papa's house, stealing medication from them. I was 9 years old. Also at the age of 9, I ended up smoking my first joint, taking my first drink of alcohol. Just to be honest with you, I liked the way it made me feel. I liked the feeling that it gave me. So needless to say, I was spending a whole lot more time down at my mom and papa's house. I robbed them blind of their medication. My dad was also on medication for a lot of different things, and so I would steal from him. He would even lock his medicine in a lockbox. I would pick it with a paper clip, get in there, steal his medicine. And of course, he blamed it on Mom. So I was kind of out of the clear and everything. But so I continued to start using as much as a 9-year-old kid could, getting it anywhere I could, any chance I could. I always hung around a lot older people than me, people with better access to drugs and alcohol than I was. By the time I was 11, though, I was at a friend's house, and their parents was shooting up right in front of me. I ended up sticking my arm out saying, "Here, do me," and I had my very first shot of morphine at the age of 11. And I believe the first time a needle ever went in my arm, I was hooked. The instant gratification, the instant feeling, and I believe right then I'd found my new love. So I continued to start doing the morphine and everything, every chance I got, different things. And by the time I was probably 12, 13 years old, I was shooting up every single day, taking 20, 30 pills a day and drinking every day. And I'd gotten so bad that when I would lay down at night, I'd have to fix me up a shot of dope, set it beside my bed, because the first thing I'd have to do when my feet touched the floor in the morning was stick a needle in my arm just to be able to function. I played basketball and softball. That was my life. That was my passion. I had dreams and aspirations of playing college ball, and God had just naturally granted me an athletic ability and all this. And I convinced myself I couldn't play unless I was high, that I played better high. And that sounds crazy, but I really believe that I couldn't play if I was clean and sober and different things. And by the time I was 13 years old, I'd met this evangelist that came to my dad's church, and he calls me out. He's like, "You're lost, and you're doing this, this, and this, and here's why." And I'm thinking, "Who are you? How do you know me?" And get up out of my face. And because, this dude, he nailed me to the floor. But we became friends after that. I didn't let people in my bubble. I didn't trust anybody. I'm from a very, very small town, kind of like when I moved to Pineville. I felt like I never left home. Everybody knows everybody all up in your business. You can't do anything without everybody knowing. And so that's the town. I was the preacher's kid that gone wrong, the preacher's kid that gone bad, and all this stuff. And so I was the talk of the town and everything. But I could tell this man actually cared. And for a drug addict and alcoholic, that means something. That somebody actually cared. He didn't judge me. He didn't condemn me. He didn't kick me in the teeth. He just tried to help me. And even when I got old enough to get out of church on my own, not have to be told to go to church, I would go hear him preach. And people would say, why would you even continue to go? And my answer was, really deep down, I was looking for something different. Deep down, I knew I needed something different. I wanted something different, but I did not know how to get it. And honestly, I thought all the world had to offer me was dying in a ditch with a needle in my arm. That was it. And I had no hope of anything else and everything. And I honestly wanted somebody to prove to me that what they had in God, being in a Christian town and community, Bible Belt, that what they had in God was better than what I had in drugs and alcohol. And sadly, I didn't see that in most Christians. And I would think, man, if that's God, I don't want it. You worse than I am. Who you think you are? And that's really the type of town I lived in and everything. And when I was 17 years old, my papa came up to me. I was Mama and Papa's little girl. I was the only granddaughter. They said when I was born, my mama ran up and down the aisles of the hospital saying, it's a girl, it's a girl. And she wanted to make me this little prissy, fancy, and as you can see, that didn't work. They tried to make me wear dresses to church and all that. I hate dresses to this day. They scarred me for life. And being around two older brothers, I'm a straight up tomboy. What they could do, I could do better. And anyway, my mama and papa was more like my mom and dad than my own mom and dad. I would run down to them and tell them my dad because I was fixing to get a whooping. And my dad or my mama would call up there and be like, don't you whoop that kid. And sometimes that would work, sometimes it didn't, but I promise you I always tried. And but my papa came up to me at 17 years old and he said, your mama's praying. If it takes her life to get you saved, she'll give it. And so I told God, I said, if you take my mama, I'll never step foot in another church again. And 2 weeks later, my mama died of a massive heart attack. And I hated God. I couldn't understand how a loving, merciful God could take somebody like my mama and leave somebody here like me. I knew I was a no good for nothing, dirty, rotten junkie. And I couldn't understand that. And even got to where I didn't believe there was a God. I think deep down I still knew there was a God, but it was easier for me to convince myself there wasn't. Because if I convinced myself there wasn't, I could do what I wanted, live how I wanted, not have to answer to anybody. And but my life really started taking a huge downward spiral after that. I quit caring about anything and anybody. I got really cold and hard-hearted. Somebody could have been laying down in front of me dying. I'd have stepped over top of them, took what they had, and kept on going. I did not care. I had no emotions, no feelings. When shortly after that, I ended up getting arrested for the first time as a juvenile for stealing a vehicle, and ended up spending a little while in a juvenile detention center, got out. My dad comes up to us and he says, we're moving to Georgia. I'm thinking, awesome, I need to change of scenery, Atlanta, Georgia, that's going to be cool. And he's like, no, the Republic of Georgia next to Russia. And I'm like, I'm not going to do good in Russia. This is not going to be good. And I didn't want to go, but I was not 18 yet, so they made me go. I had to get released off juvenile probation before I went. But I get over there, and there's no drinking age. And you can buy narcotics over the counter. So I'm like, oh, maybe this won't be too bad. And I asked the people over there, I was trying to figure out where the drugs was and all this, and I was telling them all, and they couldn't understand what I was trying to say. And I was like, do y'all have anything that's green, you roll it up and smoke it and you feel good? They're like, oh, narcotics. And I'm like, yeah, that's it. And I said, what happens if you get caught with that here? They're like, oh, big trouble, big trouble. I'm like, well, I don't want no big trouble, but, let's go for it. But anyway, so I ended up staying over there for about 6 weeks. I lived over there right before I turned 18. And like I said, I was already a really bad drug addict. When I went over, I come back even a worse alcoholic. As I said before, I was probably taking 30, 40 pills a day, shooting up 400 and 500 milligrams of dope and drinking every single day. I wouldn't take a pill without drinking. I wouldn't drink without taking a pill. I wanted to get as high as I could, as quick as I could. 75% of my life probably ended in a blackout. I didn't even get to enjoy my buzz. I just blacked out and would come to and have to ask people what I'd done, where I'd been. Many occasions I'd wake up driving the vehicle and there's some dude in my car. One time I was cussing him out. I still don't know what I was cussing him out for, but I didn't miss a beat. I just kept on cussing him. Figured there's some reason for it. But anyway, my life was 24/7 drugs and alcohol. And as soon as I got back, I come back just to play ball. They said they'd give me one more chance to play basketball and softball. I got kicked off the team my junior year because I couldn't stay clean and sober. Come back, I lasted 2 weeks, went to practice so messed up on dope and drinking Everclear. And they sent me home. I passed out in my car. They couldn't get me woke up. And finally, the next day, they got somebody to take me home. The next day, I come out thinking, man, what have I done to my vehicle? Because it wouldn't start. I just left it in reverse instead of putting it in park. And so that's why my car wouldn't start, thinking I'd tore it all to pieces. But I ended up getting kicked off the team again. And shortly after that, jail became my home away from home. I've been in and out of jail for 30-some times. I've got 15 felonies on my record. Been in and out of 11 different drug and alcohol rehab facilities. I've done the methadone, I've done the Suboxone, all that stuff. And when I was 18, I got sent to Knoxville to a rehab and used the whole time I was in that rehab. Got kicked out, went to another one, used the whole time I was there. Got into a halfway house, and I'd always said Irwin's my problem. That was my town I was raised in. If I just get out of Irwin, I'll be okay. The law hates me, they have my number. And when I got into the halfway house in Knoxville, I ended up getting arrested 5 times in 2 months. I'm like, maybe it's not Irwin, maybe it's Rebecca. And but I kept doing the same old things. It was just a revolving door, a revolving cycle. And honestly, I didn't care about anything. And when I come back from Knoxville, I lived there on the street after that for about 6 months. I was homeless, which I tell people I had a mobile home. You know, I had 4 windows and all that riding in my car. Anyway, I come back, I end up getting pregnant, got married to the dad, my husband, and who was an active alcoholic and a drug addict. And we started doctor hopping constantly. He had connections with different doctors. We would go and we would get just about anything we wanted from any doctor we wanted. We'd go from one doctor to the next. We had insurance, but of course we'd only use the insurance the first go around, and then we'd pay cash money the other doctors we would go to. And we would forge prescriptions. He had a connection with a pharmacy, and we would even, I mean, it was obvious we was forging them. I would get like 18.5 Lortabs, and we'd put 78 7.5s. And they would still get them for us, write the prescription for us. They didn't care. It was all about money. And we could go every day and pay cash money at the drugstore and get Lortabs, liquid hydrocodone, Somas, and Xanax anytime we wanted to, cash money. And so I knew I always had something, there. I didn't have to worry about doing without. And again, just that revolving door. My mom and dad, we couldn't be in the same room together. I ended up having my son, which I'd always said if I got pregnant, I would quit doing the drugs. And I'd never really tried to quit. Every time I was in jail, I had just as much dope in jail as I did on the street. It was like a homecoming party, really. I'd go in there with all my buddies. Hey, what you been doing? What's up? Hang out in there and get high and, 3 meals a day, whatever, and get right back out and do the same old thing. But when I got pregnant, I couldn't quit. And I cut back, but cutting back to me was still taking 20 and 30 pills and shooting up every single day of my pregnancy. I would black out, and the first thing I would do when I would come to is I'd put my hand on my belly to see if I could feel my son kick, and it would terrify me. But as soon as I'd feel him kick, I'd go back to doing the same old thing, living the same old way. And he was born 6 weeks premature. By the grace of God, I don't know how that he wasn't addicted. He was in the NICU for quite a while, though. Things I swore up and down that I would never do. I would never cross this line. I would never go this far. I would never do this. I crossed because of drugs and alcohol. Situations I said I'd never have my son in, I put him in because of drugs and alcohol. I'd convinced myself, that one last time, it's not going to be that bad. He's asleep in the back seat. It ain't going to hurt me to do this up here and this and that. And I can't stand it, though, when people come up to people like me and say, if you really loved your kids, you wouldn't do what you do, because that's a lie. I love my son with all my heart. I'd have stepped out in front of a train and died for him in a heartbeat, but I could not get that monkey off my back and didn't even know where to begin. And when I was 23 years old, I went back to a church revival on a Friday night. I mean, what junkie shows up at church on a Friday night? This girl did. And he gave the invitation. I ended up going up, and I said the prayer, asked the Lord to come into my heart and save me. And I must have been one of them hard cases. I questioned everything. How do you know your God's the right God? How do you know this, this, and this? And they'd called my dad while I was up there, and my dad wouldn't even come to church when I was there. He was afraid he'd be a hindrance. And so when I got up from the altar, my dad was like halfway down the aisle of the church. And for the first time in many, many years, me and my dad embraced. And I wish I could tell you that the angels were, whoa, singing and all this, and my life was this white picket fence. It wasn't. It wasn't. And I would hear other people's stories. When I got saved, God took the craving and God took the desire. I'm like, what's wrong with me? I must be a special case, because that ain't my story. I'm struggling. And so I still struggled with my addiction for about 2-3 years, even after I got saved. And I quit lying, I quit stealing, I quit conning, I quit forging prescriptions and stealing off my, but I could not quit the dope and everything. And I was scared. I would go to rehab after rehab, and they'd say, don't you want to be normal? I'm like, what's normal? If you call you normal, I don't want to be you. You kind of weird. And, I dealt with some weird people. I thought I was the one bad. When I got clean and sober, I had to realize I wasn't the only one jacked up. Anyway, I ended up going to another rehab. in Santee, South Carolina Christian Rehab. Stayed down there 10 weeks, ended up getting out. My husband had been clean and sober for a couple of weeks, and he ended up getting pneumonia, walking pneumonia, and he ended up relapsing, went and got him a morphine pill, and done that shot of morphine. And the next day, woke up, my husband was barely breathing. We rushed him to the hospital, and the next day my husband was dead. And I believe the morphine just jacked his immune system up, and he couldn't fight it off, and which it was a direct contributor to all the drugs and stuff he had done. But I struggled with that, how my husband really see me, and the dad he was to our son, and different things. And he had just went to the doctor right before that. He had 90 Lortabs, 90 Xanaxes, and 90 Somas. I went through every one of those in 2 days. I don't even remember going to my husband's funeral, anything about it, when I should have been there for my son more than anything. But it was right after that I made my mind up truly to get clean and sober. I was willing to do whatever it took, and I believe that's the point you have to come to. So I've been clean and sober since then. I hadn't really got back out there till I was going to experience any withdrawals or anything like that anyway. I'd never been to a funeral clean and sober. I can say I have now, but anyway, to see the things that God's done in my life since then, it's been a struggle. I still think about drugs and alcohol today. There's times that it'll still pass through my mind, but I know I don't have to dwell on it today. I know I don't have to act on it today. I've been able to travel the world. God's opened up doors for me. I get to go all over and share my testimony with different people. I do jail and prison ministry, which is my heart and my passion, reaching out to other addicts and alcoholics, and going in there and letting them know there's hope, there's help. It doesn't have to be like this. Going over into rehabs and different things. I work with addicts and alcoholics on a daily basis. My church back home, before I moved here, was stupid enough to let me drive the church van. So when my ladies would get out of jail, I would go pick them up, and I'd have 15 convicted felons in the church van every Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday. And I said, ladies, I love you, but if we ever get pulled over driving this church van, we're going down. They ain't never going to believe they let us borrow this van. We had some awesome times taking them to church, and they had me jumping railroad tracks in that van and everything. There probably ain't no telling what people thought about that church. Don't tell my pastor back home that. I've been on mission trips. I've been to Africa, Guatemala, Honduras, Jamaica. As a convicted felon, 15-time convicted felon, I was never supposed to leave the state of Tennessee, much less go overseas, and God just opened up the doors. And I love just sharing with other people. There's a lot in my past I regret, but also I'm thankful for it because it's made me who I am today. I see things just a little bit different than most people. I want to reach out and help them any way that I can, and different things. Even since I've been clean and sober, I ended up going through cancer with some different things, and then I was in a bad car wreck, broke my femur completely in two, even told the doctor that I was an addict, and he still sent me home with morphine, Percocet, and Neurontin, and I tripped out on him. Of course, the addict in me, I took it home, and I called my pastor first thing. I'm like, look, man, you're never going to, because he was a recovering addict as well. I'm like, you're never going to believe what this doctor sent me home with, and I was scared to death. And, but I realized I didn't have to take it. I didn't have to get high. I didn't have to sit there, but, I have to be really careful anytime I go to the doctor, because I could probably still get just about anything I wanted. I've went before when I've hurt something or whatever, and I make somebody else go with me just to give me accountability, because I need that. I'm not this type of, I'm 36 years old. I don't need no, I need it. Because I know who I am and I know how I think. And I don't lie, I just kind of twist the truth just a little bit. But anyway, I love sharing what I share, because just about every single life nowadays is affected by drugs and alcohol in one way or another. Either we know somebody, we've been there ourselves, we got friends or family, it's everywhere you look. And, so it's out there, and there are things that each and every one of us can do. And you guys especially as doctors and everything y'all are going to be, it's not something we can close our eyes to anymore, any of us. And, who am I to stand up here and say anything if I'm not one of those that's reaching out and helping? As addicts, we're hard-headed. I want to jack slap them sometimes. It ain't even funny. And choke them out. But then I remember who I was and the thinking they have, and I call them out. I don't let them shoot their crap with me. I'll call them out in a heartbeat and be like, you lying. I don't care. And they probably respect me a little bit more just because they know I've been there, done that. But anyway, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. But I appreciate the opportunity to come and get to share with you guys and everything.